What's that? What's dependency? People kind of just don't know. The word, for one thing, is kind of unusual. But really, dependency is the child welfare portion of the court. There's really two components to the juvenile system. There's dependency and there's delinquency. Delinquency, we're trying to get away from that word because kids, we don't want to call them delinquents, and most of them are not really hardcore criminals. They're just kids who have fallen into maybe some, have been subject to peer influences, and maybe they're dabbling in petty theft or drugs or whatever it may be, and we're trying to keep them out of the criminal system, and so we process them through the juvenile delinquency court. But we're trying to move away from that term, and we're going to be calling that juvenile justice instead of juvenile delinquency. And the same with dependency. People don't know what dependency means, so we're trying to get away from that vernacular as well, and we're going to start calling juvenile dependency child welfare court, because that's really what it's all about. Dependency is about kids coming to us who have either suffered from or at risk of suffering from abuse or neglect or abandonment, and it's about looking out for their best interests. It's about unifying them with their family if we can, if that's safe, or finding some other permanent living arrangements for them, either through foster care, through legal guardianship, through adoption, or some other thing. So that's what delinquency is all about. It's about child welfare. We have 24 courtrooms at the Edelman courthouse, and that's all we do there is child welfare cases. I have about, and I'm no different than any of the other judges there, I have about anywhere from 40 to 60, sometimes as many as 80 cases a day on my calendar. When I go back this morning, my normal, today I think is just about 45. We try to set light on Fridays. I won't be there this morning, so we'll have to compress that into the afternoon. But it gives you a sense of just the volume of the cases that we're dealing with. Multiply that by 24. We have 2 other courtrooms in North County, Lancaster, Antelope Valley. And do the math, and that's about 1,200 kids a day that are walking through the doors that we're dealing with. At any given time, there's roughly 30,000 kids in this system in Los Angeles County. There's such a need. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids in Los Angeles County every year age out of the system. They either hit 18, or there are, in some cases, we can give them additional services beyond 18 until they're 21. But still, hundreds of kids are aging out of the system without families. They'll never have a forever home. They'll never have the experience of still being connected to the mom and the dad that they grew up with their whole life. Some of the privileges that we, myself, and others I'm sure, have in our own lives. That's just not right. And it's not for lack of trying, it's for lack of resources. We just don't have enough people who are willing to step up and foster and adopt. So hopefully what you can do is go out and talk to your communities and just get the conversation going and try to demystify the process. It's not that, it's crazy, it's complicated, but there are so many resources and so many people to help you through the process. FosterAll's, for example, the foster agencies that you would be working with, the Department of Children and Family Services. We have a lot of kids who are waiting for placements because there is definitely a shortage of resource families where we can put kids on a temporary basis while we're trying to reunify them with their families. So that's kind of what the message is for me, is to step up, really. Not personally, you don't have to jump in and be a foster parent yourself or adoption, but there are other ways that you can help, which is starting the conversation and getting the message out in your communities that foster care is something to consider, and it's something that can be very rewarding for yourself and also tremendously impactful in the lives of the kids that you'd be helping out. What is it that we see? What is it that I see? I would say probably 80% of the cases that I see involve drugs, domestic violence, or both. There's other cases, maybe it's abandonment, maybe it's neglect, absent parents who just really aren't caring for the kids, but by and large, it's drugs and it's domestic violence. One of the things that made a big impression on me in the beginning was just how inefficient the system is. Part of that is by design. We want to give parents every opportunity we can to reunify with their kids. We don't want to have to put kids into foster care or put kids up for adoption if we can avoid it. Kids, trust me, no matter how bad things are, and we see some pretty nasty stuff, but no matter how bad things are, every kid just wants to get home to their mother. No matter what kind of situation they're in, no matter how abusive she might be, kids just want to get back home with their mother. So we work in basically 6-month increments to try to get families where they need to be, get parents into AA, to full drug and alcohol rehab programs, into anger management programs, into parenting programs, whatever it is, and we try to tailor their case plan to whatever their specific issues are, and we try to make them as tailored as possible, rather than just throwing the book at people and saying, you need to do this, 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 this. We don't want to set people up for failure. And typically we're dealing with people of modest means, people who are working hard to support their family, who don't have a lot of spare time to go to their classes. So we try to keep that in mind as well and not overload them. But at the same time, we need to impress upon them all that they need to do, and we need to make sure that we can safely put the kid back in their care. So in the beginning, we give them 6 months. That's what the law allows. And then after 6 months, we do a review. And if they need more services, we're out another 6 months. Sometimes we can send kids home after 6 months. Sometimes we send kids home only to take them back because the department goes out and does a welfare check and finds that there's still problems in the home, or new problems are happening and the police are called out. So these long stretches of time just are crazy to me, but they also serve a purpose, because we don't want to rip families apart if we don't have to. We want to have enough time to give folks a meaningful opportunity to do all that they need to do. And unfortunately, that just by its nature creates this very inefficient, it seems, system that sometimes just can be very frustrating, especially when you have parents where it's very clear that they're not going to do what they need to do. It's just not going to happen. But you're sort of constrained. There's nothing you can do until the next 6-month review period. Meantime, you have kids sitting in foster care or in group homes or under the desks of social workers. I mean, it's a pretty bad situation because there just aren't enough foster homes. What better way to celebrate the intersection of faith and the law than to work to help kids?